Hello, everyone, and welcome to the fourth day of the Climate Change and Consciousness Book Fair. I'm very pleased to have you all here. Hi, Courtney. Wonderful to see you. And the entire series that this is recognizes the literature, the living literature that has been spawned by the vision that I had of climate change and consciousness, which manifested in a gathering in Northern Scotland in 2019. And over 450 people participated on the ground, the maximum that actually could be held on that physical site, and an equal number participated through live streaming. It was an auspicious event, a complex event. It featured many leading speakers, philosophers, and strategists in the field of the emergent field of meeting the climate crisis. Since that time, the founding principles have evolved, and we have developed a global community, which I invite you to join. If you're not already a member of Climate Change and Consciousness, you can join through the same site with which you registered for this event. And please collaborate with me in building even more vibrancy into this indomitable, persevering community. So today we feature Girl God Books and Trista Hendren. And Trista was not on the ground at Climate Change and Consciousness, so our partnership, our collaboration has evolved since then. So it represents the growth and development and evolution of climate change and consciousness. We have new partners, people who have joined in connection to the vision that I have put forth and the of that vision, which at the time included goals such as weaving us all into the web of life, listening deeply and responding to Indigenous leadership, giving support to youth leadership, prioritizing the arts as activism, and similar goals. What we did not have at that time, which has emerged since then, and that I feel is epitomized in our partnership with Girl God Books, is the role of women's leadership. So since 2016, when I was the recipient of the vision of climate change and consciousness, and now that understanding of the absolute significance of women leaders and the rise in feminine consciousness, which we will speak to today, was not as clear and as evident as it is now. And through Trista and Girl God Books, our partnership has now included that within the CCC directives. Trista Hendren is not going to be physically with us today. It's late for her in Norway, and she needs her rest, but we have a video from her, and we will be hearing from her prolific collections. I will be reading excerpts from her collections, including my own contributions to them. But she is here with us in terms of her profound role in meeting polycrisis. Hi, Rachel. I'm so glad you're here. So I want to speak to that briefly, and then I will introduce Claire Hedin, who has so generously been collaborating with me every day in this series. I'm so grateful. I can't even find the words to express my gratitude for your collaboration, but also just for our reconnection in that collaboration. So I want to say briefly how I feel the partnership with Trista and Girl God Books is of the greatest priority. In fact, it has raised a whole other consideration of our priorities in terms of addressing polycrisis. So Trista has brought forth the significance of feminine leadership and the recognition of a feminine worldview, which I will posit is on a parallel with an indigenous worldview. That the feminine voice, the feminine perspective, and I am positing a new feminism, a trauma-informed feminism, a consciousness-evolving feminism that I will equate with that word goddess. I will posit that goddess really means evolved consciousness. We'll speak more about this, but Trista has brought forward and been prolific in publishing this concept of the dire importance of feminine leadership, the evolution of consciousness through feminine leadership, and the very motivation that create Girl God Books, which was to provide a feminine deification so that her daughter, representing all young women, were not only offered a masculine view of deity, a masculine view of a higher power, whatever language you want to use, that women, particularly young women, her daughter Helene was young when she wrote the book that she'll read from, needed to see herself in the framework of goddess, in the framework of deification, what is possible for us, and not only have this one option, which was patriarchal, colonizing, punitive, and ultimately for the brilliance of women, damaging. I want to add just to that, in so doing, Trista has given substance to the value of feminine emotional experience. That this feminine state of emotional connectivity is not to be scoffed at or labeled, but to be recognized and honored. This is huge. It challenges so much in so many spheres, including psychology. And in that regard, and so pertinent to this moment in time, Trista has encouraged us to not shy away from our grief. That grief, the expression of grief, so appropriate at this time, is not to be minimized, is not to be considered just an expression. It is, in fact, the texture of the times we live in. And Trista proposes that until we recognize our grief, express it, and share it, we will not be able to move forward. And I would say that theme has actually permeated this week. And it is an honor today to allow it to have the space that it needs. So that's my introduction to Trista, Girl God Books, and our program for today. I also want to introduce a bit more Claire Hedin, who is an artist, a filmmaker, a musician, and I call her the voice of the earth, and you'll hear why I call her that when I read the excerpts from Trista's collections. Claire, in a way that you will never forget, will accompany me with music and also with her voice, with sounding. It's quite a unique experience, quite healing for the nervous system. And I'm very grateful. Let me just say it again. I can't say it too often, really, that you have so generously shared your time with our community this entire week. So with that, I would like to invite everyone to step into the circle and bring your voice. And briefly, because we do want to have the 8-minute video from Trista and the readings from her collections, the collections of Girl God books, we want to make sure we have time for that beautiful experience together. But in a minute or two, if you could say something about yourself and your response to what I've shared. And perhaps we'll start with you, Claire, and then you can select someone else to share next.
So just a brief word about how I am here today, like how
Yeah.
I'm so drawn this week to these gatherings that you have generated, Stephanie. There is a quality in the feeling sense of things that feels like it's an evolution of where we've been before. Like it definitely feels different. And it's feeding me. It's feeding me in very subtle and beautiful ways. And it's a joy to be here with everyone and to feel our connectedness. So there's just something very right about being in this process with us all. So something's changing. I can feel it. And it feels optimistic. There is a ton of grief, but there's also a feeling of light that's coming through those cracks that the grief opens up. And it feels like we're doing it together, and that your hosting in this way gives us a chance to sense into that. And for me, at least, to really feel it. So I'm very grateful for the space you're holding and what's possible when you bring us all together. So thank you.
Thank you. And could you select someone to
Yes,
share?
I couldn't remember if you'd asked us to do that.
Yes.
Glenys, may I invite you to say whatever you want to say?
Oh, you're muted.
There we go. Yeah, saying hello and nice to be here and see the faces, and looking forward to hearing from Trista, who's been a friend of mine now for I don't know how many years, but published a few books with her. And I consider her very important. She's doing very important work in terms of helping women, lots and lots of women, to find their voices and to speak in her anthologies. So, and I think that's important work that Trista does for, helping so many women find their voices and get published and talk to each other. That is an important part of what's happening in our times.
Wholeheartedly agree. Yes. And would you select the next contributor, Glenys?
Oh, me? You want me to select the next one?
Yes, would
Oh,
you?
well, I'll
Yeah.
do Shakina, since I know Shakina. Hello, Shakina.
And you're muted also, Shakina.
Okay. Hello. Yeah, I feel that it's so important for us as women to become embodied as that, and to understand deeply what our own culture is, and work such as the work that Trista does is just enormous in supporting us in that. And I really feel that, you know, as we do that, we find our voices as women. And we can't do that alone. You know, we need the support of each other. It's so important. So, yeah, gratitude to you for what you're doing and for everyone else here too.
Beautiful, Shakina. Thank you so much. And would you select the next speaker
Yes.
from our list? You can't see
Susan.
everybody here, but yes, Susan. So happy to have you back with us, Susan. I know it looks like you're trying to unmute. We see the dancing finger, but you're still muted, my dear. There we go.
I just feel that I'm in the right place at the right time, and that we are at an important time, and everything that everyone is saying is resonating, and so I just feel really pleased to be here, and thank you, everybody.
And let me just mention, Susan is coming from Wales, Glenys from Australia, and Shekina, can you tell us where you are?
Yes, I'm on the east coast of Australia. About, I don't know, 8 hours drive from Glenys.
Claire is in California. I'm in Hawaii. So we are building our global movement here, bringing our voices into a circle of feminine leadership. So maybe Courtney is the other one on the screen, and then we can go to those who are not on the screen.
Hello. Such a magical little group here. Like, I want to imagine we're in a forest sitting in a circle. I would really love to all be in person, but I also am so grateful for Zoom that we can do this. I'm taking this opportunity to stretch on the floor. My 5-month-old little girl is asleep in a pile of laundry on the bed behind me. And I'm just, I've been holding a lot of tension in my back, and it's expressing in my neck right now. I'm on the East Coast of the USA, so I have a lot of family and friends from Maine all the way down to Florida, and everyone is safe right now, but just like processing a lot of the devastation that's happened. And usually writing is my way of processing grief, and I've just felt this block. Like, how do I even put this into words? And I feel so much sense of like completion of a cycle when I can write something and then share it. It feels so good. And the fact that I haven't felt like I can do that right now, I will attempt to do it in these coming days and weeks. And I would like to read some works of the women and the man who is sharing this week, perhaps for some inspiration. Thank you all. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you, Courtney.
Susan and Claire, and nice to meet you all. And whoever wants to share next, if anyone wants to share, that doesn't have their video on.
Looks like Rachel is on the screen now.
Hi. Yes, I'm here. I'm just eating, and Zoom etiquette tells me to put myself off video when eating. I'm in Hawaii. I'm Stephanie's daughter. I'm here to support Stephanie, and I also am very interested in the outcome of CCC 19. It's been really great to see everything that's come out of it. I think I've definitely been a part of supporting women and supporting women in businesses and supporting women in nature and being connected to the earth. So any way to get in touch with that is important. And I will be interested to hear what the readings are. And Adib, if you're online, you're welcome to speak next. And if not, Lisa.
Remembering you need to unmute your mics in case you're speaking and we don't know it.
Well, if Adib and Lisa like to speak at another point, we will welcome your contributions. I think it would be perfect right now to bring Trista Hendren into the circle, as she is really the star of today, along with Girl God Books. And because Claire is a master of the audio component of sharing an external recording, I am very grateful that she is taking that responsibility of providing this 8-minute video from Trista Hendren about the creation of Girl God Books and a reading from one of her first writings.
So I'm going to go ahead and share this.
Hi, I'm Trista Hendren from Girl God Books, joining you from Bergen, Norway. I am happy to be here, and Dr. Stephanie Mines with the Climate Change and Consciousness Book Fair. So thank you. I believe Dr. Mines is going to read a bit from some of her submissions in the most recent publication, which is on grief, which seems appropriate given the state of the world. I was going to share a little bit from my second book, which is actually a children's book, but it's written, the children's books that I wrote were written with both the parent reading and the child in mind. This is illustrated by Elizabeth Sletness, who's also here in Norway, and you can see some of her beautiful illustrations. This is actually from the first book, The Girl God, that's behind me. So, let's see, when did I write this book? 2013. For all children, big and small, who belong to Mother Earth. I wanted to share this quote at the beginning because this really captured my intent with the book. Poets warned us, writing of the heartbreaking beauty that will remain when there is no heart to break for it. But what if it is worse than that? What if it's the heartbroken children who remain in a world without beauty? How will they find solace in a world without wild music? How will they thrive without green hills edged with oaks? How will they forgive us for letting frog song slip away? When my granddaughter looks back at me, I will be on my knees, begging her to say, I did all I could. I didn't do all I could have done. It isn't enough to love a child and wish her well. It isn't enough to open my heart to a bird-graced morning. Can I claim to love a morning if I don't protect what creates its beauty? Can I claim to love a child if I don't use all the power of my beating heart to preserve a world that nourishes children's joy? Loving is not a kind of la-di-da. Loving is a sacred trust. To love is to affirm the absolute worth of what you love and to pledge your life to its thriving, to protect it fiercely and faithfully for all time. That was a passage by Kathleen Dean Moore from The Call to Forgiveness at the End of the Day. I could never get through that passage without tearing up. This is a rather long book and there is quite a lot with illustrations, so I am going to just skip ahead to part of the story where the mother is telling her daughter the story about the first mother. Some of these illustrations, it's kind of hard to do both at once. There is, my sister did a voiceover for this with the illustrations that you can find on YouTube, and perhaps we can link to that. In the beginning, there was the first mother. She was round and full and plentiful. Helene's mom spread her arms around herself to show the fullness of Mother Earth. Helene's eyes widened as her mother continued. She gave birth to all that we see around us, the birds, the sky, the oceans, the kitty cats. She created everything, and she took care of all of it. She worked and she worked and she worked. She was happy to do it. She loved all of her creation. But after thousands of years with no rest, she became tired. Her husband sat on the couch and rested, and then took all the credit for her work. Her children threw their dirty garbage around for her to pick up, unaware of all she was doing to keep the world afloat. They forgot about her needs and took her for granted. Over time, Mother Earth became sick. She could not stop coughing. She could not get out of bed. Her children kept demanding her attention, but she was not able to help them. Finally, some of her daughters began to notice her absence. They began to deeply miss their mother, but they could not find her. They looked inside their televisions, but she was not there. They tapped frantically on their video game consoles, but she could not reside in a small plastic box. They searched the entire mall, but she wasn't there either. None of those things made them feel any better. They became lost and started to cry. When they stopped all their searching and they were still for a while, they remembered some of the lullabies she used to sing to them. Our mother is the forgotten parts of ourselves, they realized. When we hurt our mother, we are hurting ourselves. And when we hurt ourselves, we hurt her also. They began to help their mother clean up the mess that had been made. They taught their brothers how to help them. Slowly, Mother Earth became better and more vibrant. They came to her and knelt at her bed. "Mother, we have missed you," they told her. She smiled. "I have missed you too, my darlings, and I love you more than you can imagine." "But I am still very tired," she continued. "I need you to look within yourselves, remember everything I have taught you, and to help me so that we can all heal." I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because I think I'm getting short on time. So take a deep breath. Find the spot in the center of your being where all your power resides. Hold in your breath as long as you can. Repeat this until you feel really, really strong. Then pick something, one thing that you can do yourself or with your sisters and brothers to help me clean up. Maybe it is watching less TV. Perhaps it is buying used clothes or making your own. Maybe it is helping your mom and dad with recycling or planting a garden. But whatever it is, do it until you are really good at it. And then add something else. After a while, you will see your brothers and sisters are helping too, and then I will arise from my bed and join you. Helene's mom closed her eyes. The tears were gone. She had found her center again. She looked up and saw that her daughter was looking up at her. "I'm sorry," she said. "I'm sorry too," Helene replied. They snuggled in together and sang a song for Mother Earth. They began to hear the birds singing outside their window. As they looked out, they saw beautiful trees rising to the sky and flowers blossoming all over their backyard. Children were running into the center and dancing in a circle. They were singing and laughing. They had come back to Mother Earth, and she embraced them all. "The time has come," the walrus said. "Perhaps things will get worse and then better. Perhaps there's a small god up in heaven readying herself for us. Another world is not only possible, she's on her way. Maybe many of us won't be here to greet her." that on a quiet day, if I listen very carefully, I can hear her breathing. That's the quote, ending quote by Arundhati Roy. I think I am out of time here. Thank you for being with me. This is really sacred time. Many, many thanks to Dr. Stephanie Mines and her beautiful daughter, Rachel, and everyone who has joined us and made this event happen. I'm very grateful to all of you. Much love.
Let's breathe in the tenderness and the beauty of Trista's words, her presence, her freedom in being emotionally present, and the gift of this beautiful book, the beautiful illustrations, and her courage in bringing forward women's voices. I want to read a few quotes from Trista, from her wonderful posts that she shares so generously through emails on various platforms, all of which are rousing and encouraging and feeding us as women to let our voices rise and come forward. We must reclaim, reframe, and contextualize the grief space so we can feel our feelings and free ourselves of shame. Then we can tell our stories, speak our truth, and let go. Then, when we are ready, we can move on, knowing we are connected to a powerful and wise female lineage and support network. Goddess understands how grief stress wounds the body mind, including the hypothalamus, the gut, the ovaries, and the womb. Our internal systems, endocrine, immune, nervous, cardiovascular, are knocked off balance. If you grieve with Goddess, she won't confuse empathy with eternal damnation and silencing. She'll give you space to wail into the abyss like the Banshees did. Go to the places in your head you need to go to. Write love letters to the soul. Wade through the blame, betrayal, and PTSD. Build a new life. Laugh with your soul sisters. And through ceremony, tune into your own divine nature. May our collective keening ring so shrill that those who are holding the weapons take a deep pause, lay them down, and find their humanity again. The lessons of the dark goddess are vital. These are some of the words of Trista Hendren in her passionate and gentle evocation of our voices. And I want to emphasize the importance of the cultivation of our voices in whatever form you are guided to deliver your message, whether it be through poetry, through narrative, through essay, through music, through art, through sounding. Don't doubt. Let this lineage that we all belong to support you encourage you in bringing forth your voice, refining your voice, fall into the joy of crafting your voice in whatever form it takes. And I just want to shout out here to Courtney, because I've known Courtney for a while. She's also my assistant, and she's always been writing for as long as I've known her. And I want you to know, Courtney, that your writing has really advanced, that you are doing it. You are doing it. And since Courtney had her beautiful baby, Coralie, her writing has just flourished in my observation. So I want you to know that I'm aware of that. I support that, and keep going, and know that the flow will come through you again. No doubt at all. It's germinating right now. It's incubating just as your baby did. You know, we're born again when we have children, particularly, I think, our first child. We're born again. It's one of my first books was called Two Births, and it was a poetic rendering of my delivery of my first child. And it was clear to me then that there were two births occurring, hers and mine. So don't worry about the flow, it's coming. So I want to read some of the excerpts. I have 3 books from Girl God Books here. Trista Hendren and Girl God Books have produced 50 books. And I want to say that Trista is navigating all of the necessary steps that it takes to put these books out with support. She does have support. We all support her, but she is doing a lot of it single-handedly. So the 3 books that I have here that I will read from are her recent one that I contributed to, which is Wounded Feminine and Grieving with Goddess. I also contributed to Rainbow Goddess, Celebrating Neurodiversity. And then I also have Pain Perspectives, Finding Meaning in the Fire. And Glennis has been a writer for Girl God Books, and perhaps you can speak to the books that you're included in and perhaps read from them today. And Claire also, in learning about Trista and Girl God Books, has written or recalled something she had written that was really connected to what Trista is doing. So we want to include that as well. So I'll start with a reading from Wounded Feminine. Actually, prior to reading this poem, this is the poem I sent to you also, Claire, so you know it. It's called A Shroud of the Miraculous, for the 14,000 children massacred in Gaza. I want to tell a very short story prior to this poem that occurred prior to writing. When the war in Gaza broke out, which was really October 7th, the start date of this series, that early time, one evening, I felt really, really sick. I thought maybe I had food poisoning. I couldn't imagine what it could be from, since what I had eaten was so mild. But I was dizzy and nauseous and had a terrible headache. Maybe I had a flu. I didn't know what it was. And I went to bed early and was kind of roiling and dizzy. Everything was spinning. I had no idea what was going on. It was like I was not able to be fully embodied at all. I was so incredibly confused. And then I started vomiting. But when I looked in the toilet, what was in the toilet bowl was ashes. I was vomiting ashes. But clearly, this was not related to anything I had eaten. I didn't have a flu or food poisoning. I was processing my grief. in the way that Trista described in what I read earlier. My gut was processing my grief, and I was vomiting the ashes of the 14,000 children. A shroud of the miraculous. It is made of finely woven linen so that the soul's breath of the dead is visible to those who can see. The shroud moves up and down like a cotton caftan on a grieving woman standing at the edge of the sea at sunset on a summer night. Silence fills the universe. I am starving to hold these babies, all 14,000 of them. I am starving to hold them in my mother's arms. I know every one of their names. I know that as they saw the last explosion before their darkness, at that moment, my eyes burned with the acrid poison of their sentencing. These are now the holy hours that have descended upon us. These are now the holy hours that have descended upon us. Souls fall into the healing waters, and then they instantaneously rise up again. They ascend like the green flash that everyone waits to see at sunset by the ocean. Each one of these children is related to us. Our family lines, all of our family lines are now haunted by their deaths. We will never forget. This is a vow enshrined in our collective memory. We live to redeem you. We live to redeem you, the 14,000, and all who come after you. None of you are abandoned. So say the elders. making space for our grieving. Joining in a circle, honoring the necessity, the alignment of our grief. This is what these times call for. Claire, I wonder if this would be a good time for you to read this poem.
So this is it. If this were a room telling a story of my life, what rich, fertile soil it has created. We are surging forward, a tsunami of light bursting onto the horizon, an unstoppable force. We are all here because we know each other. Even those who have not yet met are already acquainted by the infinite turnings of life's ability to recycle us into new and precious shapes and forms. With us, we bring our grief. With us, we bring our grief. And I hope you have, because without it, we are just empty words. Our grief that we have acknowledged and experienced is part of our connection to all that is, as is our joy. The fine dance between both states, riptides erupts, and compassionate presence can emerge. That is what is needed here today. But right now we're dealing with people who are frightened and do not feel up to the task, who need convincing that they are alive and capable. We know they are capable, and our frustrations are signs of our ability to see a future that is not yet visible to others. We can do this, but we must do it as a combination of our best and our worst selves. Bring our levity, our clear vision, and our doubting, vulnerable, open child within. Children will carry this world forward so long as we access the wonderment, vision, and unstoppability of our own youth within, our own painful arrogance that dares to dream, to restore, to behold. The youth that cannot be stopped will stop the world instead. Redirect, unleash, and ride the guidance that only true risk-taking, revelation, and vulnerability can receive. Thank you for your dreaming. Thank you for your child self.
Thank you, Claire. You were right. This is completely aligned. I want to read just a quote that comes at the beginning of The Wounded Feminine. Part of healing the wounded feminine and reclaiming feminine wisdom is for the women to reconnect, to come together as sisters with a common mission, rather than stay isolated and reinforce a divisiveness which disempowers us all and weakens our efforts. Jane Hardwick Collins. I have been feeling lately how important it is for us to rally together and hear our words and feel the presence of our collective and cast aside all patriarchal colonizing training that is isolating and divisive, that is competitive, that separates us as women from one another. All the thoughts, all the feelings that are comparisons and evaluative rather than deep listening and being fully present to one another. To me, that is a goddess process. So I will say more about this at a later point. I'll write more about this. I am not a student of goddess mythology. Other people here are, like Lennis, and I am going to invite them to speak, and perhaps others. I have not thus far invested myself in that. I know Lisa Reagan, who is listening, has as well. But when I think of goddess consciousness, I think of us. I think of the evolution of our consciousness in the way that I just described, that it is the expansion of our consciousness that I experience as an elder that is the pathway of the goddess. So the goddess is not out there in my estimation, in my experience. I haven't studied her so much out there. I'm sure I will enjoy it when I do. To me, the goddess is in here, in who we are becoming and being in a circle and hearing Claire's words, for instance, your words, builds our goddess consciousness. I'd love to hear from anyone. Glennis, I'm thinking of you because you are more familiar with the realms of the goddess studies. Please, if you have something you'd like to contribute or read, I'd love to hear from you.
Thank you, Stephanie. I want to say here, I'd like to introduce Shakina just a little bit. And Shakina has been on the goddess path for decades and was the main person who put together for over 2 decades the Moon Diary. She used to put it together for both hemispheres for over 20 years, for Northern Hemisphere and Southern Hemisphere. She had to retire, as we all do at some point.
27.
And wait, how many years?
27.
27 years.
Yeah.
Right, it was almost 3 decades. Sorry, yes. She was also an amazing dancer, ballet dancer, taught it and performed. Well worth, I don't know if there's documentations of that's available, but it was beautiful work, and she taught many women the art of dance, ballet dance, and self integrity. in her body work and in her diaries. So it's been handed over and graciously picked up, thankfully picked up by another young woman, Nikki, who now does it only for the Southern Hemisphere. So sorry, all you Northern Hemisphere people. So I just wanted to say that about Shakina, a woman of note in our presence.
Thank you, and honor to you, Shakina. I felt honor for you immediately when I saw you, and I'm so glad, Glenys, that you were able to give us the details about that. And we are honored to have you with us. Thank you, Shakina.
Thank you. And thank you, Glenys, very much.
Yeah, that's right. Shakina's not too good at documenting herself, but yeah.
Or talking about myself.
Yeah, so I do often find myself a little bit in the role of cheerleader. It seems to be, but nowhere near as advanced in terms of cheerleading as Trista has in terms of, getting women to speak. But I have played that role a little bit of being a small bird that does a bit of connecting. And yes. So I first met Trista. I can't remember exactly where I first met Trista. It might have been through Helen Heisukwang in the Margot work. But then I had a story, My Name is Medusa, a children's story, in my desk for 19 years. And I did finally get it sort of digitalized, and I've been sort of thinking about who I could get to publish it and blah. But Trista, I thought I submitted it to Trista. I said, Trista, would you be interested in this? I don't know when that was. It was 2013 or something like that. And she picked it up immediately. And away we went. She had Anna Bartz was the illustrator. And I just think I've got it up here somewhere. My Name is Medusa. Yeah, so that was it. That was the beginning of it. It just Anna Bartz did an amazing job of illustration, which is actually mostly why the book, sells. People love the illustrations. So and the story is pretty good. So that was Trista's and I, our first adventure. Trista and I. My Name is Medusa. And we had some good endorsements for that. And then Trista had the idea, well, she said, we need to do an anthology. That is an anthology on Medusa. So that was the next adventure that Trista and I did, was the anthology on Medusa, revisioning Medusa. Because there's a quote from me somewhere in there about how important it was to revision her from monster to divine wisdom. And I was really keen to do the anthology because for me, the most important essay, I really wanted to see Miriam Robbins Dexter, her very scholarly essay on Medusa, reach a more popular audience, because it was an academic essay. And Trista did a marvelous job with all the footnotes and the high-tech scholarly stuff and put it in here. And so I was really keen for Miriam's essay to get out there. And so that's one of the essays, but there's more than essays, there's artwork and all kinds of creative work in that. So that was the next one. I can't remember what else, but I have contributed to the Grieving Goddess one. Two of the works in there, the anonymous ones, are mine, actually. I had to do them anonymously for the privacy of my daughter. This is being recorded, so but I don't think it'll be a big audience. So it's safe enough, I think, for me to say that. And I think that might be enough for me.
Thank you, Glennis. Thank you. I wanted to read from another anthology, Rainbow Goddess, Celebrating Neurodiversity, and I feel this really exemplifies Trista's courage and how she moves from courage to manifestation. That is a model that I think women are inspired by, that she could feel the importance for women. She writes for women, absolutely. And how we need that. So these like women's circles that we can dive into and get the support without having to go online. We can be accompanied by each other through her anthologies. And she has the courage to manifest it, to produce something. Here it is, real material matter that you can carry with you and sleep with. I sleep with books. I've been doing that for my whole life. They are my lovers. And she knew that the topic of neurodiversity was an important one for women. And she, without having the training of a neuroscientist, she could intuit that women's brains increasingly were operating in unique ways that would be labeled in a negative light by the outside world, but that were indeed keeping pace with this high-speed development of a world careening towards its own destruction. And that women were attuned to that through their emotional fibers in ways that needed to be supported and encouraged rather than damned or thought of as crazy. I cannot tell you how often women who I serve, who I have the privilege of serving in my work, say, and I say to myself, I probably said it in this series at one point, I don't know, it looks like I'm crazy because moving so far beyond what patriarchy has established as the norm. And I am not making those allusions to patriarchy in an anti-male attitude. I am looking at the systemic institutionalization of a colonized mindset that is imploding and shredding itself before our very eyes. And we are perceiving and feeling that as the mothers of the world. So Tristan knew that speaking to neurodiversity was critical in women having the confidence to speak. We must develop that confidence. We are working against the forces that told us not to have that confidence, that told us we needed to change, that we needed to appear more patriarchal. And even though we know that intellectually, as Trista has said, it's in our guts. So we have to exert a focus, an intentionality to move past that, to overcome that, because it's a lie. And I will say that from the many incredible speakers that were at Climate Change and Consciousness, the two who have stayed with me and who really made a difference for me are Vandana Shiva and Anita Sanchez. Anita will be our presenter tomorrow in this series. And the reason that they have stayed with me is because they revolutionized, they uprooted the ways in which patriarchy had taken hold in my brain consciousness. They pulled up the toxic weeds that I myself had abided by. And they showed me the falsity of my thinking. So Vandana Shiva with the words fossil fuel brain, that the fossil fuel industry had contaminated my brain. It was a wake up that is still waking up. And Anita Sanchez with forgive the unforgivable. These two frames have revolutionized my intelligence. And they are still doing that more than anything that any other speaker said or did. And both of them are Indigenous women. I think that's of value. And to me, this is one of our responsibilities, is to speak to the revolutionary thinking that is put forth by women and the power of that revolutionary perspective that is, whether the woman herself is identified as Indigenous or not, based in an Indigenous worldview. And it is that Indigenous worldview that I am speaking to that is our salvation. Without a doubt, that is our salvation. So propagating that is our job. So we have to arouse our voices, and that may involve cutting through the materialism of labeling neurodiversity as a failure, because neurodiversity is the evolutionary state, the emergent state, brain development, consciousness, evolution, that these times insist upon. So incredible that Trista Hendren had the prescience to create this anthology on the topic of neurodiversity with many contributors, of which I am only one. Prescience, I put forward, is a goddess attribute and comes organically from this evolution in consciousness, which is, from my standpoint, the definition of the goddess. So in this, in the contributions that I made to this anthology, Rainbow Goddess, I love the title, Celebrating Neurodiversity. I speak to how I did clinical research with neurodiverse children. And I speak to how, in addition to all of the experiences of doing that clinical research, what I discovered in doing it and writing a book about it, which is called New Frontiers in Sensory Integration, I discovered that I was neurodiverse. I had never, because I was working so hard to try to fit in and erase my neurodiversity, I hadn't celebrated it. I was trying to get rid of it so that I could write like a true clinician, which I have now given up. So thankfully, how liberating. So that's really, I think, the essence of what it is that I had to say here in this, and perhaps if you are in this anthology, we haven't spoken throughout this entire week, which is about the books that were spawned from climate change and consciousness and the partnerships that were spawned. We haven't made any big deal about buying any of the books. We haven't even mentioned it until this moment, which shows you in many ways the feminine approach. You can find these books. Anybody can find these books. You just go online and the internet finds them for you. But I have no marketing plan for selling the books, even my own. I haven't even mentioned that. I wanted to read from Trista's writing in this book, Pain Perspectives, Finding Meaning in the Fire. So Trista has already made the connection between our personal physiological pain and discomfort and as women, our attunement to what is really going on in the world. And so in this piece, she writes to this very specifically, and she speaks to this in my conversations with her, and you could even see it in the video, how she is feeling the pain of the world. And she speaks to, and I think this is so valuable as an experience and also as a model, that when she was completing this anthology, she lost a very dear friend, Barbara O'Mara, whose art and writing is throughout the anthologies. And as a result, she entered into a state of great pain. And in her pain, she turned to the great cosmic mother. If God is the mother of the universe, then the creation is of the same substance as her, I read. And it is of her as the child is of the mother's substance. And this means that the whole creation is divine and divinely related. And therefore, our pain is within this fabric. We should have imagined life as created in the birth pain of God the Mother. Then we would understand, we would know that our life's rhythm beats from her great heart, torn with the agony of love and birth. Then we would understand why we are her children and we have inherited her pain. And we would feel that the death, like the death of my friend, is a reunion with her, a passing back into her, the blood of her blood again, the peace of her peace. Hi, Coralie. Hi. Hi, precious one. Yeah, sleepy. Still sleepy. So I'd love to hear from you in terms of all that we have been discussing, the importance of our voices, the fabric of a divine feminine universe, how the evolution of our consciousness is the goddess state. I call it the new feminism. It is trauma-informed. Briefly, why I say it is the new feminism, it is because, and the research validates this, women go for trauma healing in much greater frequency than men. I mean, we know this already, but several people have done research, quantified it, and the fact of the matter is women with PTSD will go for PTSD treatment twice as much as men with PTSD. And what the research also shows, so this is neuroscience research, it shows that because of the construction of women's brains, which we already know are somewhat differently constructed due to the higher level of emotional coherence comparative to men's, women's brains change more rapidly and more ubiquitously in response to trauma healing. So more women than men, and this is quantifiable data, documented. I wrote an essay about it, and the references are in the essay. Women have experienced more healing from trauma and more brain plasticity from that healing than men. As a result, women's brains, women's consciousness, because I equate those two as a neuroscientist, are more expansive, are developing more.
Mm.
And it is the nature of all of us to develop throughout life. That is part of my research, and many others. I'm not the only one. But as a result of how women engage more vociferously, with more enthusiasm, with more commitment to healing from trauma, and because their brains will more variety in terms of the intracranial component parts of the brain, women have evolved their consciousness significantly more than men. And that is something we can claim and point to. And therefore, we are trauma-informed goddesses. So we're approaching the very topic of feminism from a trauma-informed standpoint.
Mm.
So I will be writing more about that.
That's so juicy.
It is. It is.
Thank you for sharing that. That really inspires me to hear.
So I'd like to
Yeah.
hear from, yes, Glennis.
Yeah, well, after hearing that, thinking about that, the women's the capacities in trauma-informed, it does, I mean, we know who should be running the world, don't we? I mean, we've known that for quite a long time, but there's more validation. There's scientific validation now for it. It's not just purely an intuitive knowing. It is being validated by neuroscience. And well, trauma informed, it seems to be, it should be a requirement for leadership, really, shouldn't it? I mean, there's lots of things that should have been requirements for leadership. I often think here in Australia, you see people who enter into Parliament, it should be a requirement that they have to go to Central Australia and experience Uluru, the centre, the heart of Australia. It should be just, what they have to do to qualify.
Of course.
So,
of course.
Anyway, I just wanted to say we know who should be running the world, shouldn't we?
Yes.
But you've provided scientific evidence now. Thank you.
My pleasure. And go ahead, Claire.
Sorry,
Yeah,
Stephanie. There's
go
something
ahead.
you also said that prompted some thinking that I just wanted to sort of map out by putting words to it. When you reference the idea of thinking to ourselves, oh, I might be crazy, or I must be crazy. And so that kind of sets some thinking in motion. And it made me want to say this, that we're not alone in here. So depending on the company we're keeping and the influences that we are conscious of, that can be a positive experience or a negative experience. And in your referencing patriarchy, it really is an influencer of mind and body, and in instinctual behaviors being kind of diverted into narcissistic or damaging self-perceptions or ways of being. I thought of that idea that when we're actually saying anything that references ourselves as potentially crazy, that we've actually been inhabited, disproportionately inhabited by something or someone, a frame of mind or a frame of being, patriarchy, for example, that does not know us well enough to have an opinion. And that is, in fact, the flag, the indicator, when we want to say that it's not us actually talking, it's the influence talking, and it's its way of revealing that it's actually there, which means we can then say, get out. Just get out.
Well done.
Yeah, and to
Oh, well done, Claire.
reclaim this territory. This is ours. This is our queendom. And
Well,
our
you're
mind in
absolutely
particular.
right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. And that is a consciousness expanding process.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you recognize, and you've said it so beautifully, you know, you recognize that the way that you're even being present to someone is less than what you're capable of. And so you discard that language that is doing any kind of comparing or intellectualizing, and allow yourself to drop into your full embodied experience. And that is just saying to that patriarchal introject, you don't belong here.
Yes.
I'm quite done with you. Yeah, you can leave now. And I do this a lot, and it really works well because that never comes back. Or if it does, I recognize it even before it articulates itself, and I can feel how my consciousness expands as a result. So it's good medicine. It's good
And
medicine.
I think that's why going for energy healing work is so productive, because one of the basis elements of it is that it's clearing anything that's not us. It's clearing that out of our system. So at the end of that session, we feel light, spacious, cognizant, clear-minded, at peace and joyful. And that is our actual resting state, when it's us in here or a collective of really positive reflections of us.
Beautiful. And Susan, I see you coming on board. If you would like to speak. Courtney, anyone else who would like to speak before we close?
I wanted to make a comment that came to mind when you were talking about goddess studies and how you had the sense that goddess is manifesting through us and what we're doing. And I definitely feel that way. I have an herbalism teacher, her name's Yaya, and she introduced me to a Shakta Tantra teacher named Laura Amazzoni, who is a scholar in goddess studies, particularly from the Indus Valley, where in India, 10,000 years ago is documented of goddess worship. And there's this image of a mandala with 68 petals, and this is like the representation of the emanation of the goddess. So like the light shining through a prism, making a rainbow, the goddess is the light and we are that rainbow. And the petals of the 68 petaled mandala, it's like those are all the different representations. So like she who wields the pen, she who sits at the loom, she who trains the parrots to talk. And so my herbalism teacher would just get so excited when someone would reveal like that they are like another petal of the goddess. Like look at how she is being represented here amongst us. And so I just see that as I look at all of your faces and hear about all of your gifts. She who teaches the dance, the belly dance. Yes, so I'm honored.
Thank you, Courtney. And Susan?
Well, I feel that very full. I've been listening to the words and in fact, I don't have any words to respond really, other than feel very full and also seen and understood without having to move, if that makes sense,
It does.
in all that's been said. And yeah, just very grateful to be here.
I'm very grateful that you are here. Susan is the teacher of deep listening. She has learned in the woods how to listen and be present. And I learned from her presence. Thank you. Anyone else who would like to speak before a few closing words? Rachel, Lisa, Adit, we'd love to hear you. And feel free, if you are not speaking now, if you want to follow through with me in any way, don't hesitate. I do want to say that tomorrow we will be blessed by Dr. Anita Sanchez, truly a goddess. She is the author of The Four Sacred Gifts. She was a stunning and humble presence at Climate Change and Consciousness. And I have felt in the ensuing years the power of that presence growing more and more. She is an indigenous Mexicana, as well as a Native American. And her presence is actually similar to Susan's. It's coming from a place of transmission. And so we will be in her presence. You're all welcome to attend. You already have the Zoom room. You are, as I said before, all welcome to join Climate Change and Consciousness. We can be co-collaborative in expanding your words in partnership with Girl God Books, Trista. We can do basically whatever we want to manifest the power of, as Glenna said, who should rule the world? Who should be in the leadership position? We can manifest that. Climate Change and Consciousness is a vehicle for that. It is intended to be. And we have a large membership that is global. And we can create events. We can do whatever we are inspired to do and do the legwork for, such as this series, which honors the books, the literature that is evolving from, still evolving from that seedbed that was Climate Change and Consciousness. The original gathering that Claire was present at, Rachel was present at. I want to thank Rachel for creating the flyers for all of these events. It's such a wonderful contribution. And if you care to make a donation to support programs like this, of course you can at the Climate Change and Consciousness website that you logged into to get the Zoom room. All the books that we've been talking about are easily available. Please purchase them and support these authors. And I hope I'm going to see everybody tomorrow. This has been a great week. And thank you. There's Rachel in her greenhouse, harvesting her microgreens.
Yes, I've been listening. I just have 14 things going on. So thank you all for sharing. And Courtney, great to see you. Happy baby time. Congratulations. I'm glad you're safe. And I can take off my glasses there. And oh, I didn't really know what I look like. I'm in my shade house. I'm with a bunch of dogs. And happy to see you all. And I should be able to join tomorrow for most of it. So I'm looking forward to seeing Anita
Stephanie, good job doing a plug for the rest of the times and the possibilities of climate change and consciousness. I mean, the only thing that came to mind is that what Anita and Vonda and Shiva have really mastered, the people that you said who have really stuck with you, is that they have a very great they've mastered the balance of the feminine and the masculine, and that they're able to disseminate important knowledge to many different kinds of people because they have balance of the masculine and the feminine. So that's what came to mind as you were speaking about them. And we're all goddesses was the other thing. Everybody's a goddess, so that's great.
Well said, Rachel. And you look beautiful. You look beautiful.
Oh,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Fine.
I want to add there, since that word has been used so often, it is a master. We need to. I wanted to address Claire as a mistress of arts, what a mistress of the technology, and I think we need to use that word more often in a different context. We are
Thank you.
mistresses.
Thank you. That's a great reminder.
Well, you know, in Spanish, we would say maestra.
Maestra. Oh, it's lovely. It sounds lovely. Yeah.
Maestra.
And
yeah.
Italian, actually.
Ah, so we could use a maestra.
Yes.
There's
A maestra.
Yes.
Maestra. Okay.
And doesn't it roll off the tongue so
Oh, it's
sweetly?
beautiful.
Maestra.
That's why I often use the word dea instead of
Ah.
goddess, because you know it's been mucked around a bit. So
Yes, it
you know, the
has.
house dea madre is what I refer to my place as a Bruna dea madre, place of a mother.
Yes,
Goddess.
you are right on, Glennis. We need to proliferate our own goddess language. We need to speak in our tongue. Yes. And pass.
Yeah.
And to reclaim our language.
Reclaim our language.
Reclaim our
Yes.
language.
Language that has been appropriated and
Yes, yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Woo-wee.
Now tell us that word again, maestra.
Maestra. Maestra.
Maestra.
Maestra.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Maestra. And pass it on to Coralie and to the little one
Yes.
in my daughter's belly right now.
I'd like to see her working. That's very good.
Yeah.
She's manifesting.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's her farm. She created that farm. That is her
Yeah, it's
farm.
great. Maestra of the farm.
Maestra of hydroponic farming. Exactly. Wonderful. How exciting. I'll see you all tomorrow, I hope. You'll love
Stephanie. Thank you, everybody.
Maestra Anita Sanchez. Okay. Beautiful.
Thank you.
You.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.